Hello and welcome to Study History with Mr. P. In this video I'm going to look at crime and definitions of crime in the period 1900 to the present. So first of all, looking at some change in definitions of crime, where, as you will remember from the previous eras within this topic, changes in social attitudes often lead to changes in the law, and we particularly see this since the 1960s. So some examples relevant for this course, for example, are as follows. Homophobic crime. So until 1967, homosexuality was illegal in the UK. It was then decriminalised in that year, and then in 2005, the Criminal Justice Act allowed for more severe sentences to be given for hate crimes that were to include homophobic crimes. So what we see is the significant way here in which the law has changed. So before 1967, it was actually illegal to be homosexual. By 2005, the law changed as such that people could receive more severe punishments for hate crimes that included homophobic crime. Race crime is another issue of changing definitions of crime as well. So after the Second World War, many people came to Britain from Commonwealth countries. And in 1968, the Race Relations Act made it illegal to refuse jobs, housing or public services on the basis of race, ethnic background or country of origin. And this was extended in 2008 to include spreading racial or religious hatred. Domestic violence, again, is where there's another example of changes in the law. Laws were introduced in the latter part of the 20th century to make violence and abusive behaviour within a relationship a crime. This has included the 1976 Domestic Violence Act, a 1991 law on rape within marriage, and a 2014 law on controlling and coercive behaviour. And the final example I'm going to look at with you of changing definitions of crime is abortion. Until 1967, terminating a pregnancy was illegal, apart from in a few very strict exceptions. The Abortion Act of 1967 legalised abortion then if certain conditions were met. So what we see here through these four examples, homophobic crime, race crime, domestic violence and abortion, is how changes in social attitudes lead to changes in the law. And in some cases here, we've seen things which were previously a crime being decriminalised and actually it becoming a crime to commit offences specifically against those things. And we've seen this throughout different eras, how changing social attitudes lead to changes in the law. Now, we've also seen changing attitudes towards things that people have previously called social crimes. So as a reminder to you, social crimes are ones which people in society tend to accept to a degree. And this can include things like tax evasion, using drugs, copyright theft, maybe minor motoring offences. And as in previous time periods, it's always difficult or more difficult to enforce the law if the law is not supported by society. However, there's some examples and exceptions to this in current times. So driving offences. Drink driving and speeding, for example, are good examples of how society's attitudes about the seriousness of these offences can change dramatically over time. So as late as the 1970s, for example, it was considered relatively normal to drive home after drinking a lot of alcohol, whereas today it's condemned. And again, speeding is seen as less acceptable now than it was in the past. In some ways, the reverse is true maybe with drug taking. In 1971, the Misuse of Drugs Act made many drugs illegal, but some people think that legislation of drugs could help to tackle crimes associated with them. Now, the 20th century has also led to what we call new opportunities for old crimes. This is where some crimes may appear new, but in many respects are actually older crimes carried out in a different way or using different means. So again, I'm going to give you a few examples of this. So terrorism. There have been various terrorist threats to the UK in the 20th century. For example, the IRA, which carried out bombing attacks in Britain between the 1970s and 1990s. And in recent years, groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS have been responsible for terrorism acts. And the methods used for these acts of terrorism have changed over time. People trafficking. This normally involves people from poorer countries being brought to the UK and forced to work for little or no money, and these criminal gangs often control these people. Now, cybercrime is any crime that's carried out using the internet and other digital technologies. Now, obviously, cybercrime didn't exist in previous centuries and in previous time periods, but what these cybercriminals do is commit crimes which are similar to crimes from in the past, but this time they do it digitally, such as fraud. So fraud is much the same, for example, as it has been in earlier periods, but new methods such as email or electronic means are used to do it. Copyright theft. In the early 20th century, this involved illegal photocopies or recording, but in the latter 20th and early 21st century, this now includes things like illegal downloads, which have been made possible by the internet. And extortion. Again, this means getting money from people, and this is more often committed using the internet, such as by hacking computer systems. So all of these examples are crimes which maybe have been committed in different ways in the past, but this digital age has maybe made these crimes able to be committed in different ways or for different purposes or in a more extreme way.